Clay across all of the Star Trek races, from Cardassians to the Klingons to the Romulans to the Tellarites to the Andorians to the Borg to the Hirogen and Voyager. I know that's kind of tough for you to answer, but I was trying to think of it. Are the Ferengi like the worst? If someone was like, you have to write a Star Trek script, you said, great. They said, okay, it has to be a blank race story. Would the Ferengi be like low on that, or is it because do they have such a untapped potential that you think they'd actually be higher, or how would you personally respond to being told to write a Ferengi story?
Yeah, I think that they tend to be. I think they're the worst because they're the only race that nobody takes seriously, and I mean, whether it's in universe or the people writing the episodes.
Yeah.
So yeah, they don't really do anything particularly interesting with them ever, really.
I mean, I think I'd have an idea for what to do with them, but if they were like, it has to. If my idea to sort of fix them was not allowed to be done, like if Gene Roddenberry was like, no, this is like the way that I created the Ferengi in the last Outpost, their first appearance on TNG, is the way that you have to portray them, I'd be like, ooh, I think the Ferengi are probably lowest on my totem pole as to what I would want to write out of all the races across Starfleet.
If it were me, I have a much less encyclopedic knowledge of the races, so I would probably... If someone were like, you have to write an episode that doesn't feature Klingons, Vulcans, or Romulans, I would probably choose the Ferengi just because it's the next one that pops into my head.
Right? Yeah,
they're very prevalent.
Yeah.
They're a little one note, I would say, but yeah, they're interesting because I kind of feel like the more you learn about them, the less they work. Mm-hmm. Because I find that they work better as sort of accents, really.
Yeah, a little bit of color or something to a little bit of taste to the palate. Well, we're going to be talking about acquisition, so let's do that. We'll take a break. We'll play a clip from the episode, and then we'll come back and we'll break it down.
Fuck McGoran, do what I'm saying. Sit there. Who the hell are you? Who we are is unimportant. Do you command the ship?
I'm the captain. What have you done to my crew?
They're sleeping. They won't be harmed as long as you cooperate.
What do you want?
Where is the location of your vault?
Vault?
All right, everybody. So, Acquisition is the 19th episode of the first season of Star Trek Enterprise. It aired on March 27th, 2002. Teleplay goes to Maria Jacquemetton and Andre Jacquemetton. Story credit goes to Rick Berman and Brennan Braga. Directed by James Whitmore Jr. In-universe date is unknown, but it's 2151. In this, even Memory Alpha gets a little bit goofy here. So this is a blurb I've never seen end in a sentence that you'll hear in a second. A group of interstellar thieves stun the Enterprise crew and begin looting the ship. Trip Tucker is the only one left to stop them, but can he do it in his underwear? So even Memory Alpha is having a little bit of fun with this.
Well, you got to keep it light over at Memory Alpha. They deal with a lot of heavy shit.
It is. After 600 blurbs that you've written, you gotta let crack wise, I think, with a few of them, or take a little. I don't even think that he's not the only one left to stop them, really, because there are 3 people who are left to stop them. He's the first one awake, but maybe that counts. I don't know how far you want to take it. So the Ferengi are in Enterprise, and this is, I might be getting tired of saying something, but this is another Enterprise episode, I think is the way that you described this one. It's another strange choice that they've made, and I mean, it all comes down to the Ferengi in this, right? Like, I think that this podcast is going to be, if it's not just us doing a thematic repetition of what we've talked about with the Ferengi before, it wouldn't be fitting for this episode of the show, I don't think. You know, no, as you said, no one takes the Ferengi seriously, so their episodes can't be taken seriously.
Yeah. I don't mind that they are a comic relief species, for lack of better explanation, because I think, especially in a show like Deep Space Nine that gets so heavy, I understand why they kept going back to the Ferengi well, just to things up a little bit and not worry about Bajoran genocides and other slave labor,
fascist
and all the other
takeovers and things.
Yeah. But yeah, it's an odd choice for this show because there's so much stuff they haven't done yet. I'm kind of surprised they went so quickly to the Ferengi well. I did enjoy the yet another new character from Jeffrey Combs, where he actually manages to do a different kind of Ferengi than he plays on Deep Space Nine, which is great.
Yep. He's Brunt on DS9, the Ferengi trader or whatever, who's always in Quark's business. And this one, he's kind of the opposite of that. He's a very nebbish, insecure Ferengi, and so it's the opposite of the bombast of Brunt.
I kind of wish that they had got Armin Shimmerman and the guy who plays Rom to come in, and they all play different characters.
Yeah.
with different makeup, so it's like you can't quite tell that it's them. That would have been fun.
You probably recognize Clint Howard is one of the Ferengi.
Yeah, I don't know if I would have recognized him if I didn't see his name in the credits.
Oh, really? I feel that his face is the one that carries through. He looks the most like a Ferengi in real life. So it's like his when he puts on the makeup, I feel like, oh, it's Clint Howard's face. The other one is Neelix, Ethan Phillips is one of the Ferengi.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
and
fun.
then the fourth Ferengi is some guy who's never been in Star Trek before.
Yeah, like this feels like such an opportunity to do something weird like that, where it's like we got Jonathan Frakes,
right,
Spiner, and
Michael Dorn to come on. Yeah,
to all come on as Ferengis, but all those guys are like 6 feet tall, so it probably wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fine. I don't know. It was it's nothing we haven't seen before on at least a couple times on across most of the other shows as far as plot wise.
It's a little bit of a Die Hard thing. It's like there was that TNG Starship Mine. It's kind of like a, someone's hiding and not being, the difference is that the Ferengi are not scary in the way that Hans is and his group are. Like there's no real danger to you because the Ferengi are kind of silly. Yeah, it's
I kind of wish that they had played with the Ferengi and the fact that they had never encountered them a little bit more, and so like I wish they had taken them really seriously and like and viewed them as a scary race. Yeah. And then at one point Archer's just like, oh, these guys are dumb.
Yeah, right. It's like a disconnect between their appearance, which could be somewhat ferocious. They have like sharp little shark teeth and like are kind of gnomish troll looking and stuff like that. And then to pair it off with them, all they want to talk about is business acquisitions, basically, like just the contrast there of what they actually look like and what they are. Yeah,
can you get out of a Ferengi if the Ferengi board your ship and they want to take all your shit? Can you get out of that by saying, I can't give this to you because I'm under contract with somebody else to do it? And they're like, oh, okay, well, I mean, that's fine. I understand that.
Yeah.
Nope, see you later.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think they've ever done that where someone tries to like out negotiate a Ferengi, really.
Yeah. That's really surprising if they've never tried to do that.
Maybe they have, and it's just not sticking in my mind as something that's played well. I mean, I think that the problem with them is that if you tried to do that, the way that the Ferengi are written now is that they don't even really stay true to their principle, which is that they're this sort of like business oriented group because they're basically just like criminal entrepreneurs, like they don't really have a belief in contracts or anything like that. They just kind of talk about it all the time, but they don't have, these guys, for instance, don't have a, if you're going to call the Ferengis a take on capitalists, they don't have a respect for private property. They don't even respect the fact that I need to acquire this through some sort of like trading mechanism. It's just like, we're going to steal it and then it's going to be ours. And so they're not even as goofy as their like hyper mercantile capitalist thing is that Roddenberry gave them when he started them off. It's like, they don't even stay true to it enough to make that kind of an interesting thing. They're just criminals who are kind of shitty and shifty little characters.
Well, they had the opportunity to twist it a little bit because it is 100 years in the past. So they could have
200 before we've ever seen them.
Okay,
before.
sorry,
Yeah,
200 years in the past.
Yeah, from CNG, it's 100 years before TOS.
Right. Okay. 200 years in the past, which gives you a lot of wiggle room as to what the and I think that kind of goes a little bit part of the problem I'm having in general with a lot of these recurring or previously known species that show up. It does seem a lot like they don't change much across 300 years of Star Trek television or 200 years of Star Trek television.
Where the humans, the focus of the show is how different the humans are, but no one else is very different.
Yeah, because I mean, like 200 years is a long time for anybody.
Yep.
You know, the United States is only 270 something years old. You know, a lot can change in 200 years.
Yeah, I guess you know, to get super nerdy, I guess you run into problems when Vulcans live for 200 years. They would be the same Vulcans that you'd run into later.
That doesn't bother me too. But even there, though, I mean, like, I feel like their society might change in 200 years, even if it's the same people. But
yeah. I guess sorry, not to interrupt. But I guess that depends on like whether or not you think it's just a different point. But it's like whether or not you think that the society can change if it's still the same people. Like we had that problem with Terra Nova, where like, can people really change as much in 70 years? Like if you forget how to speak and things like that. So you wonder if you need a little bit of like life or like organism turnover to create a cultural change. But I understand what you mean is that the humans are definitely portrayed differently. So you think that the Ferengi at least should have some sort of thing outside of the fact that they use that whip weapon that they've never used since their first appearance in TNG. Like that's the only callback that these are old Ferengi, I think.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised that they didn't, excuse me, that they resisted the urge to have them pre-rules of acquisition and have this somehow be like a lead into the creation of that or something.
Yeah.
But you know, like they are lawless stealers or whatever, and then after their interaction with the humans, they're like, you know, if we had some sort of rule as to how we handled these things, maybe a system of, you know, I'm glad that they didn't do that.
Yeah, but, the Enterprise is carrying the Magna Carta or something for some reason. They steal it and are inspired by the contractual obligations of the state and things like that.
Yeah, but I'm surprised that they didn't really. I guess technically they are a little different because they are pirates. And they are the most active we've ever seen the Ferengi. Usually the Ferengi are just sort of like wearing big robes and fancy clothes. Yeah, so
this is the most aggressive I think that we've seen the Ferengi since their first appearance. So if you they're aggressive in kind of a comical sense. I mean, just because their first TNG appearance, they are supposed to be intimidating. Like they're like stunning people with their weapons and they're kind of like, you know, sort of gnashing their teeth and things like that. Here they're kind of that in that I'm always surprised in this episode that they are responsible for knocking the Enterprise out. It always seems like a real Ferengi thing would they just stumble across the Enterprise that's been derelict for some reason.
Is that I thought they got knocked out because of that thing that Trip brought back from the moon.
Right, and I thought the Ferengi planted that though, was the point.
Oh, is that what happened? I completely missed that.
Maybe not. Maybe not. That's what I assumed.
If that's the case, that makes the episode a lot worse.
if the Ferengi knocked them out?
Yeah, that's pretty
interesting.
Dumb.
Yeah, because I think maybe they don't actually say that in the episode, but it just seems like a random thing to talk about that they randomly got knocked out by this thing, and then the Ferengi actually found them. But the Ferengi, there's no scene of the Ferengi. Well, I guess you don't know what they're talking about. When the Ferengi find the Enterprise, it's not like they're like, hello, is anyone here? Is anything going on? They know that the crew is knocked out, I think. That's my understanding of what they're doing anyway.
Oh, yeah, I guess I didn't read it. I just read it as though they had come across it. But no, I guess you're right, because they do talk about how long the knockout thing is going to last. And
that's right.
And I do remember at the time thinking that was weird that they knew how long it was going to last and that they knew what happened. So I guess you must be right.
I thought it was weird that it's a gas. The gas spread through the whole ship and before anyone could do anything with that. Yeah,
I guess. Yeah, sure. I don't care for that they did it on purpose. I like it a lot better if they just kind of come across what looks like a derelict ship. I'm the one joke that I would have done maybe is when Jeffrey Combs starts talking about the rules of acquisition. I wish he had said something like, "We have these rules. We have 15 rules." And then Archer's like, "Oh, that kind of sounds like a lot." And he's like, "Well, it's, you know what I mean." So it's like they I don't know how there was there 270 or something.
I think they underestimate in this episode. They say less than what DS9 says, so they have added.
Okay.
They have
So
added rules. Yeah,
they do that joke, only it's a lot more subtle.
it's more, there's something like
people
270 rules, and they say there's 173 or something in this episode. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess that's a halfway there to the to that joke working, I guess.
We have one golden rule. They just said they start off with the golden rule, and that's all. that they have.
like 5 or something. I don't know. Like the different. If you had told me, if you had said, "Are there 170 rules of acquisition?" I would say yes, and I would be wrong.
Yep. You'd be technically right. There's at least 100.
Yeah, I don't think that's enough of a change for that joke to really work. But what do I know?
I think there's I think they get one of the rules wrong or something. That's one of like the sort of weird criticisms of the episode, that the writers get one of the rules. They repeat a rule or something. It's a very minor problem, but I mean,
It's a shifting list.
We talked before. I was wondering what your thoughts. We talked before about previous tech being brought in, and we thought previously to this point that we thought things like the holodeck and stuff like that was brought in fairly organically into this series. I think that this is the first one where I'm like, wow, this really sticks out that they have a pre-existing idea and they're going to shoehorn it in here, especially because I think the ending here is atrocious. I think it's terrible because they're stuck in this spot where this alien group was trying to steal everything from them. They capture them and they let them go because they can't take them home, because that means that people will find out who the Ferengi are. You know, there's no way here that, because you have to have this continuity exist where you don't know what the Ferengi are, you can never capture them and interrogate them about what they are. So you have to just let them go. But I'm surprised that they didn't just have it be the Ferengi get away. Like the Enterprise fights back, but the Ferengi just get on their ship and fly away, and everyone's like, well, what the hell was that? Like, where did those people come from? Weird, we'll probably never see them again.
Yeah, I don't know if I blacked out or something while I was watching this, but I wasn't quite sure why Jeffrey Combs started working with them at the end.
They just give him command of the ship. The Ferengi ship is now his. Archer gives it to him.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
But it just seemed really weird that was how that ended up playing out. So yeah, because they, after once again, to Paul's use in this episode is that she gets the upper hand by jerking him off.
By giving him a hand.
If I never see somebody do that to a Ferengi again on screen, it will not be soon enough.
It's so disturbing. It's
yeah. It's like, I get that it's funny, but it's also sexual harassment.
Yeah, it's funny, but it's also, it's almost too graphic to be funny. You know, like there's a weird thing about it where if they were a little bit more oblique about what was going on, you'd be like, yeah, that guy's getting a Ferengi hand job right there, and that's kind of funny. But they have, it always leads in where he's like, oh, stroke my lobes. You're like, this is disgusting. I don't need to see this. Yeah, it's awful.
Yeah,
awful.
If the reaction to it was a little more subtle, it might not be as gross. But it's just like, it's like they stuck their dick in an electrical socket or something.
Yeah, it's tasteless, and it's just like I always just think of, like, I imagine the female actress who's in that scene just has to have like a straight face while looking at this like gnomishly made up little guy with huge ears and being like, yeah, this is it. But did you
all right.
Did you find the Ferengi?
Jolene? All right, Jolene, remember, you're a Vulcan with no emotions. All right, Jeffrey. Okay, go.
Great take, Jeff. Great job there. He's actually very good. But
No, he's great. He's good in everything.
Did the Ferengi stick out to you here? Like, I find it just very obvious that they are a previous callback. It feels very clunky in the way that they're introduced here, mostly because that ending has no other way. For some reason, the Ferengi can't just fly away and be gone. They have to catch them for whatever reason and then tell them to go away. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's very much, you're getting into Discovery territory, where they introduce something that is not canonically not happened yet, so they have to figure out a way to cover it up in order to get out of it. I think I wish that they had gotten away as well. I mean, I don't know. I don't think it looks, I think it makes the Ferengi look even stupider than they are, and because they're not all dumb. they still have a certain element of cunning to them.
Yeah,
and
they're hyper focused, which makes them dumb.
Yeah,
you know, like they can't see beyond their narrow vision. Rom is dumb.
Yeah, Rom is dumb. Quark is not dumb. Quark
Nog
is
smart.
very single, yeah. Quark is very single-minded. Nog is smart. Shit, what the hell is Jeffrey Combs' character's name? Brunt. Brunt is smart.
Yeah.
Also very single-minded. So it's the single-mindedness, like you said, makes them seem dumb. So I think it's doing them a disservice that they don't find a way to like scurry off.
Right.
Because I don't see why you have to play them as so inept that they essentially get put on their horse and then they slap the horse in the ass and say never come back. You know?
Yeah. No, I see a lot of Enterprise, sort of I see a lot of Enterprise contextual problems with this, right? Like, so if you're doing a prequel Enterprise episode where this is before TOS and all that stuff, and you introduce the Ferengi, isn't it a bad decision that we've talked about before, which has been a problem, that the human characters of this are already Starfleet material? You know, where Archer's like, we haven't had money and we don't need money. Fuck you. Shouldn't there be a thing where this is so proto Federation that money is still something that can be done where the Ferengi can bribe humans and things like that? Like the Ferengi have an influence on humans that they don't have in later series because humans are still interested in gold and stuff like that. Like there's a human greed desire that maybe the Ferengi can play on here with a crewman or something like that to get access to things. And instead you have Archer going, well, even though this is a prequel, we're not supposed to be this way. We are good people who are Federation material at this point. So we have an immediate problem with you, Ferengi, and we have no relationship to you whatsoever.
Yeah, I don't think there would be anything wrong with like Trip stepping aside to talk to Archer and be like, you know, they're offering us kind of a lot of stuff or whatever. This could be really valuable if we take it back. So you know, yeah, I don't think they have to be saints necessarily. If that idea isn't fully set up, yeah, why not? God forbid they have character.
Right. I mean, the problem here is that there's no conflict outside of the fact that the humans want to take their ship back.
Yeah,
so,
I was thinking that too. It's like it's so straightforward, and I was thinking about other shows and an episode like this in a show. I hate to keep using Buffy as an example, but this feels like an episode where the plot itself is so straightforward that on a Buffy episode, they would use this as an excuse to tackle something like character-wise that was a big deal that they've been driving to for a while. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the situation ends up being just the framing device for this thing that you're actually caring about, which is this character clash that's been building up for the past 6 episodes or something. Buffy does that really well with their gimmick episodes. When they do gimmick episodes, it's usually has some sort of big revelation that the series has been driving to. So it's not just, oh, this is the one where nobody talks. You know, right. There's something more baked into it than just the gimmick.
Yeah, because as it stands here, this episode can be done with any alien race. There's no reason for this to be Ferengi because they don't bring anything besides the fact that they talk about rules of acquisition and things like that. There's no difference between just generic alien pirate that you create for this episode and the Ferengi, which is unfortunate. And there's no reason to bring them into this episode outside of fans know who these people are. And it'll be kind of cute to see them early, but don't give away too much because we can't actually have the humans figure out who these people are.
Yeah, I would be curious to know behind the scenes. I mean, I guess you got to write these really far in advance. And this, what number episode is this? Like 17 or something? 19. Yeah, so I guess the show is probably coming out at this point. What I'm getting at is this feels like a dopamine hit, like a let's hit the Ferengi button so that buys us a little bit of time. You know what I mean? Yeah. It doesn't feel like this is our first season. Things are going really well. Our concept is super strong and being used to its utmost, whatever. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the rest of the crew gets a day off, though. I mean, aside from the 3 main people there. So maybe it was just a break for everybody else.
I think that the problem is that it's not a problem to go to the Ferengi in and of itself. I think that the problem here is that this seems to be season 1 of Enterprise seems to be a lot of poorly thought out ideas that they are competently executing. So
Sure.
I think that the way that you change that is that, like, if you're going to do this and you don't show some different side, or you don't take advantage of the prequel nature or something like that, or you don't do something clever with it, it feels really pointless that this is an episode of Enterprise that you're watching. I was thinking there's an episode of TNG called First Contact. I think you watched it with me, baby. It's the one where Riker is kidnapped by... Or Riker is on an away mission and he gets knocked out and he's taken to an alien hospital, and he wakes up in the alien hospital and they're taking care of him, and they realize that he is an alien, and they're like, oh, like, what the hell's going on? We've never seen aliens before. We were talking about in that episode, it would have been so great if that one was only told from the POV of the aliens. Like, so the main cast were just sort of guest stars who would beam into the perspective of what the aliens were looking at. So you were in the shoes of the aliens, seeing like, oh, we're meeting aliens here for the first time, who are the humans.
Sure.
This would have been great if this was entirely from the POV of the Ferengi, who were discovering this human ship, and they were trying to do a Ferengi thing, and you focused on the Ferengi story, and the villains who were kind of in the background a little bit were the humans who eventually chase you off the ship. That would be kind of interesting, and it would tie into... I would have done the same thing. I never would have had them be able to talk to each other. I would have started with the Ferengi thing, where you never understand you would understand the Ferengi, but you can never understand what the humans are saying from that point of view.
Yeah.
And that would have been fun.
I also think it solves the problem of the canon problems as well, because if they can never talk to each other, then there's no reason why the humans would know anything about them, what they're called, or what their deal is. Yeah. So you don't have to worry about figuring out how to write them out of continuity after that.
Right.
No, that would be really cool, I think. And I think it would lend itself to doing what the show does pretty well, which is the creepiness factor. I think if you turned that around and put that onto the Enterprise from the viewpoint of the Ferengi, I think that would be
right. The humans would be the creepy ones, which is kind of a funny, like if the Ferengi are scared of what's going on the ship, which I think makes sense for their characterization. They're profit driven, but they're not exactly brave as a species. And they disable the power on the Enterprise. They go on and they have flashlights, and the humans are like running around in the background as the Ferengi are trying to steal stuff. You'd be like, oh, it's like a clever twist on things. And then the humans can chase them off and they escape with their lives.
Yeah, you've got Trip running around in the background, half naked, like some sort of like the alien from Alien.
Yeah, the Vulcan is pinching the neck of one of your friends, and it knocks him out, and you're like, what the hell's going on here? Like, what kind of power things or powerful entities are these? It's just that's the problem with these Enterprise episodes. They just feel half baked and thoughtless in a lot of sense. Like there's no desire to do anything interesting here with a twist. And I was just looking at the dates. Like we obviously did the series out of order, but I didn't realize that this show started the year that Voyager ended. So Berman and Braga had no break between it. For some reason, I was thinking there was a break, but apparently there's no break. They just were coming off of Enterprise, which maybe they were not directly involved in, but they were sort of overseeing at that point, and moved into a new series.
You mean Voyager?
Voyager, sorry. And then moved into Enterprise, and that's what it feels like to me at this point. It just feels like they had no chance to catch their breath, and so they're just going out with, well, what else have we got? Throw this out there, and we'll put it in a new series with a new cast and see how it goes. And it's just not rewarding at all. A lot of these later shows.
How many times do you think that they were writing those scripts and they accidentally wrote Chakotay instead of Trip?
I know. It's like when the date changes, the year changes, and you keep writing like 2019. It's like, oh, it's March of 2020, probably. Or Neelix, like they probably kept calling Ethan Phillips Neelix while they were filming this practically at that point. But yeah, it's that's really it. There's not much else to say about the plot or anything about this, because it's just kind of a minor free the people. Archer has a very lame subplot, which is just trying to... I think this is a bad episode for showing what Archer is good at in a lot of ways. Maybe that's a good way to take this. Archer Archer's, I don't know what, Scott Bakula does not seem built for this kind of thing that Archer's doing here, which is this like conniving, trying to turn somebody again. It's a minor version of the how much sleep did you get last night thing, where he's trying to be a little bit tricksy with them.
Right.
And it's just, I don't really buy it. It doesn't sell it.
His tricky voice is just that weird, like Ronald Reagan type thing that he does.
Yeah.
So are you no, not Ronald Reagan. It's the, do you like gladiator movies?
No, from
like
Airplane.
it's that kind of cadence. So you must be the one who's in charge of this ship, I would assume, right?
Yeah. Why wouldn't your cousin let you sell the material? It's just a lot. And that plot is just half baked because all of Archer doing all that stuff doesn't really get them out of anything. It just provides an ending where this one Ferengi is now in charge of the ship and he's going to leave because Archer kind of befriended him, but not really. He tricked him into befriending him.
Yeah, ultimately, T'Pol is the one who eliminates that guy.
Right.
And it doesn't. Yeah, there's not really an end game to it other than Archer learning that the Ferengi are kind of what's the word? Pushovers, I guess. Or not pushovers, but susceptible to
Jedi mind tricks.
Yeah.
Maybe you admitted you had blacked out a little bit during this, so I don't know if you're the right person to ask, but how do
you know how many times I've heard that in my life?
How do you are under oath here, Clay.
Yeah. Officer, I'm not sure what to tell you.
How do Trip, Archer, and T'Pol communicate their plan to each other? Do they ever, or are they just all magically on the same page where T'Pol knows to go to the vault to shoot them with the phaser?
Yeah, I'm not totally sure. I was wondering that in the scene where Archer and Trip get into a fight.
For no reason. Does nothing.
Yeah.
Does nothing.
I get maybe that sort of misogynist improv is baked into Starfleet's training or something. Where if you get the chance, if you need to break up and escape from an alien race, get into an argument over a woman.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
Well, it reminded me very much of Shadows of Pajem, where Archer has that scene where he gets the shit kicked out of him for no particular reason, and it's not to throw the figurine. It's not to.
Yes.
There's like, when they get into that fight, you think that during it, Archer has something that he wants to give to Trip, but he can't give it to them in front of the Ferengi, so they have a fight, and Trip takes it from him while the Ferengi are distracted or whatever. But they fight seemingly just to prove to the Ferengi or convince the Ferengi that they are at odds with each other. But it's not relevant to that. The Ferengi aren't onto them or anything. There's no reason to have to sell this so hard.
Yeah, it seemed to just be an excuse to. Yeah, I don't really know. It's just Archer continuing down his route of saying that there's valuable things on board and that he cares more about the money and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just an action beat for the sake of an action beat, I guess.
Yeah, it is.
And it's not even, if I remember correctly, it's not even like that fight distracts them while T'Pol goes and does something else.
No, it accomplishes nothing. There's no secondary outcome, or there's nothing that is only able to be done because they fight with each other.
Yeah, exactly.
It's too bad. Just reveals Trip's inner desire for Hoshi. It's just so, like, is Trip not married to T'Pol because he can't even in character admit that he has a thing for her? He's like, no, not T'Pol. I want to date Hoshi.
Yeah, it's like, I know. It was so weird that they picked Hoshi instead of. I don't know why they did that, especially because T'Pol is the one that all the Ferengi are like
interested in,
drooling over. You know.
Yeah.
I do think. Of saying the line "my wife," because that's my favorite thing. Harrison Ford's really good at it, and also Kurt Russell's really good at it. And I think they should open a school that teaches actors how to convincingly deliver the term "my wife."
My wife.
Because it's not just, oh, you're not going to take my wife. It's you're not going to take my wife.
Right. Yeah.
It's a very specific way you need to do it.
It's the emphasis that everyone in Air Force One pronounces the word president. My favorite thing about Air Force One is that the movie fetishizes the word president. They're like, the president is on the plane. He's like, it's the president on the line. They all say president like that. They can't just say whatever the fuck that guy's name is. It's calling. It's a real like bureaucratic jerk off sesh there for like how engaged they are by the word. I don't think I have much else to say about it.
Get your hands off my wife,
Mr. President.
Whoa, too real.
That's. I wasn't even thinking about Trump. It goes back quite a ways. Like,
that's true.
Just a thing you could say to any president, I guess, at this point. I don't have much else to say about Acquisition, I don't think. Do you think we hit the problems with the plot enough? Like, there's no problem with the plot, really. It's the same as Rogue Planet. There's not much underneath this very fine veneer of this is a story, technically, because it has a beginning, middle, and end, but it doesn't really have... It is all... it's all facts and no substance, I guess, would be the way to say about it.
I guess so. Are we expecting too much from this show? Like, because this is a fine. It's fine. It's not terrible. It's a fine episode, like mid-season episode of Star Trek. That if this was, I mean, they have done this very thing on TNG at least once, probably more than once, and it's fine. Are we expecting more from the Enterprise as a show for some reason? Because like we're talking about, oh well, it's too bad that they didn't use it as for this other subplot and blah. And it's like, well, yeah. I mean, if you want to, if you're swinging for the fence every time, sure, that would be great. But like, is this show? This show gets fairly maligned. I know there's a lot of people that love it, but it does get it's kind of the forgotten Star Trek show.
Yeah. And
do you feel up to this point like it is really that much worse than any of the other shows? Because I honestly don't. At least for a first season, I still think this is probably the best first season we've seen. Yeah.
It's probably going to come out statistically being our highest scoring. Well, maybe outside of TOS season 1, it's going to be the highest scoring season that we've had out of TNG, DS9, and all the other stuff.
Yeah.
I think it has to be somewhat taken in context, right? Like, so you have to go in saying, even though we've watched these out of order, this is the last of 5 Star Trek series to that point. So it is the final one in terms of everything else that we've seen before it. So at that point, I think that there is an argument where, like, would you say that DS9 took less advantage of its setup and setting than this one did? I would say that the difference between something like DS9 and Enterprise's first season is that DS9 took advantage of its setting and what made it a unique universe in the Star Trek thing. However, it had worse scripts at that point. So there was an idea of like, you can go places with it, and there's like something unique about this. However, the stories are pretty bad. Here, Enterprise feels like it's the opposite, which is that the scripts are competent, but it doesn't really feel like there's a reason for this show to be its own series at this point.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that.
And I think that's kind of catastrophic to it in a lot of ways. Like, and not that there's not changes coming for Enterprise or that it goes another 3 seasons, obviously, but at this point, it just feels Enterprise feels tired in a way that the first season of DS9 didn't feel tired. The first season of DS9 was just bad, but that's the problem with it.
Yeah, I do think that the big difference is that even in the first season, Deep Space Nine episodes could only be Deep Space Nine episodes.
Yeah.
And this in Enterprise, a lot of these episodes could, unless they directly tie into continuity or actually do really get into the concept that they're playing with, most of these episodes could just be middle season pick a Star Trek show.
Yeah.
Like this episode here, they could have done this on Voyager, no problem.
Yep.
Or TNG, or it doesn't. Okay, if they change the Ferengi into something not the Ferengi,
right?
But it's not.
Or if they just had a thing where the Ferengi, this is not the first time meeting the Ferengi, but the Ferengi knock them out and try to hijack the ship. That's perfectly fine for those series. Yeah. Yeah.
So I do think that is the problem, is that they do it. a lot of these episodes are feeling like Star Trek for the sake of Star Trek, of just doing Star Trek.
Yeah.
And they don't have a connection to their concept the way that some of the other shows do.
Yeah. And because I would agree with you. We're maybe being harsh on them in terms of like overall quality of what they are, right? So it's like you're maybe being a little bit like in a somewhat middling episode, you actually have more negative things to say about it than positive things, but to me it doesn't feel, it just doesn't embrace its concept really very strongly. And something like this where the Ferengi get called in, if you're not going to expand on what it would be like to first meet the Ferengi and not have it be extremely different from what any other Encountering the Ferengi episode would be, outside of the fact that they don't say the Ferengi, it's like, not really interested. Because you're going to get a Borg episode in the second season, which I think does take advantage of its prequel nature. Like the that whole thing is built around the fact that this is very early in meeting the Borg and stuff like that. So
interesting. Yeah.
We'll see. That's it, I guess. We'll take a break. We'll play a clip from the episode, then we'll come back and read some patron thoughts and give our final thoughts about Acquisition.
I'm going to be contacting the Vulcan High Command as well as Starfleet. If you come within a light year of any one of our ships, you won't know what hit you.
You'll never see us again.
If you want to be unshackled, you might think about showing Krem here a little more respect.
Vermin! Release me, and I'll forget this ever happened. Later, maybe, if you're nice. Let me go, you idiot! Shut up!
All right, everybody. Thank you very much for listening to the show. If you want to support the show, go to patreon.com/thepensky-file. It's the best way. A couple $1 a month gets you extra stuff. And as always, our Captain tier supporters get a special shout out at this point. So let me expand the little screen here. Special thank you goes to Alec DeWolf, Andrew Turlog, Ben Douglas, Bradley Killens, Captain Brazen, Cardinal Doomsday, Chris Tinsley, Christian Pouch, Corey Martin, Darth Moscow, David Beermore, David K, Dwayne Hackett, Eric Johnson, Eric Sanchuan, HH28, Jacob123, Jake Keys Gamer, Joint Mango, Jordan Cooper, Kevin Lowry, Kevin Rice, Cal Barrett, Mad Courier 6, Matt Cutler, Matt Houston, Matt Ross, Mike Burnett, Mike Harris, Nathan Elliott, Neil Brennan, Nick Sergi, Russell Elwood, Samuel Custer, Grim Santo, Sean Stephen Minton, Tarek Latif, Tom Housen, Vault 13 Hero. Thank you very much, guys, for supporting the show. It means a lot. It's very kind.
Is that alphabetical order?
It is, by first name, alphabetical order.
I see.
If people would prefer a different ordering, let me know, and I'll sort them by this little Excel sheet that they've got here.
Hey, man, if you want to throw in a tip, largest tip gets named first.
I could do it by pledge. Pledge per...
Just air out all that information.
I'll do it by alphabetical... email contact name. Let's see here.
And a very Ferengi way to handle it would be to list it by largest donation to smallest donation, just to shame.
That's true. It does have lifetime pledge. That would be the most different way to go about it. That's a very Ferengi way. I should have done that. You should have sent me that idea earlier. Let's go to Patreon, and we'll read some patron comments here for Acquisition. I think there's about 10 of them. What the hell happened there? There it is. Matt Ross says, oh boy, another stinker. Well, at least we know that TNG, Voyager, and DS9 Ferengi, as well as Clint Howard, get work. Even Jeff Combs can't save.
Can I jump in for a second?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think people remember what a bad Star Trek episode looks like. This is not a bad Star Trek. It's fine. It's not terrible. Mm-hmm. There are terrible Star Trek episodes. I don't know if I would call this necessarily a stinker. It's kind of boring and kind of middling, sure.
Yeah.
But it's not Angel One here. You know, there's a lot left there's a much more of that hill they can go down before you get to like bad episodes.
It's funny that Angel One is usually your go-to for a bad episode. It's also the first one you watched, and I wonder what the correlation.
Why.
Yeah,
that's why it just made such an impression on me that having not watched Star Trek for so long, and then having that be my first introduction back into it,
there's a shock to the system.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't know if do you remember Resurrection you probably don't, but Resurrection on DS9, which is where Mirror Boreal comes back to life from the Mirror Universe. We hated that episode. And I would say that this episode is somewhat in line with that, which is like, it's like, why is this happening? Like, what's the point here? Maybe it's worse because Belial is just even worse than a Ferengi in terms of like what you can get out of that character. But that's another thing of character appears, kind of wanders around on the set for a day or two while they film it, and then he disappears at the end of the episode, and it doesn't really amount to anything. That's kind of what this one is. And maybe I think that this episode, well, we'll get to it. Maybe this one's better, but I just wonder, we were very harsh on Resurrection because it came during peak DS9, where it was really going great, and then you get an episode like that, and you're like, this is terrible. But this one feels much more in line with all the other episodes that have come before. So maybe saying the first season of Enterprise is straight 3s is wrong. It's straight 2s, maybe, is the way that we're going to average out to this. So we'll see. But I understand what you mean. It's not... Well, we'll get to it, I guess. Matt Russ, even Jeff Combs can't save the story. Episode really messes with continuity. If they met the Ferengi, the Federation would have known about them way before Picard met them. Was it an Indiana Jones secret guarded by top men? So was this for laughs, filler? Who said, you know what we need? Ferengi comedy. Look at all those DS9 episodes. There are ideas like speaking in Ferengi, but that's about it. Seeing Trip to his low-impact Die Hard was weird. Why does he not put on his uniform or shoes? Or how about get a metal club? What the hell type of security is on the vessel? Why didn't anyone check a cargo unit in the quarantine setting? Why is Archer getting his ass kicked again? Why are there no airtight rooms? Why are the Ferengi taking clothes and chairs? Why am I asking these questions when we all know that this is bad writing? Let's get the hell out of here.
I think you're focusing on the wrong details there.
The wrong...
all of that stuff is really inconsequential.
they're focusing on the chairs because if anyone has ever had to buy a chair recently, you realize that a chair is much more expensive than it ever should be. So you should steal your chairs whenever you get the first chance.
Yeah, and it slides back and forth. That's pretty cool.
A Latte Librarian says, the Ferengi are gross as always. Did they need to lean so hard on the woman as chattel aspect of Ferengi culture? I'm unfamiliar with that word, chattel. I think the episode would have worked just as well without it. At least T'Pol had some agency in this episode, but poor Hoshi, or should I say Mrs. Tucker, did not have a single scene where she was awake. At least we got to see more women on the Enterprise, even if they were all unconscious in a pile. Is that a pile of women? I didn't even realize that. Were the Ferengi collecting the women?
I don't know.
Oh, that's kind of funny.
Oh,
maybe.
I guess probably yes, because they do say that they were going to sell them.
I just didn't. I remember them saying that they were going to sell the women. I didn't realize that they had sorted them at that point.
I didn't catch it if they did, but if they did, that's pretty funny.
Why didn't they do a thing where the men of the ship are separated from the women, and those are the two factions that have to I don't know what you can really get out of that, but I mean, like, especially on it's like, well, this is the sexiest Star Trek, so I'm sure you could get something out of it. But you know, if the Star Trek Enterprise, the women haven't been near the men so long that they've become lesbians.
which happens.
Which is that's hard sci-fi right there.
Yeah, and they've been in the camp so long that all of their clothes have fallen off.
They've seen everything. I kind of, for some reason, I like the fact that they sorted the women, and if that had been able to be tied in or something, like at least separate T'Pol and Hoshi from Archer and Trip and everyone like that to sort of show that there's a separation there. I don't know what you can do with it, but it's something. Let's see here. Next episode is Captain Brazen says, I would like to acquire back the 45 minutes I lost watching this episode. The Ferengi are back because why not, said the Enterprise writers in 2002. The heavy use of the Ferengi and their forgotten TNG energy whips make the episode scream fan service in a very bad way. Just like the Ferengi rummaging through the Enterprise, I can feel the writers' grubby fingers pillaging through the Trek story catalog, trying desperately to find a way to make some glorious profit, and landing on the Ferengi episode archive. Sorry, fellas, it's a stinker. There's another stinker for you. Brennan Braga even admitted this after the episode aired. There's no excuse for the Ferengi, no excuse. That was an act of desperation, and I hated it. So I see the trio of Archer, T'Pol, and Trip resembling more and more closely to the classic TOS trio of Kirk, Spock, and McCoy in an otherwise terrible episode. And Trip runs around in his underwear most of the episode because we have to find a way to still make a terrible Ferengi episode sexy. My eye rolling continues. Despite seeing Clint Howard, Ethan Phillips, and Jeffrey Combs get some work, it's a low 2 energy whips out of 5. Interesting he went with a 2 there instead of a 1. Point Extra G says, I see you hiding there, Neelix. You too, Balak. Why would I Oh, from TOS. And also you, Shran, or Wayun, or whoever you are. That Ferengi makeup doesn't fool anyone. I don't know why they thought that this show needed the Ferengi. It's at least not as bad as the worst DS9 Ferengi outings. I kind of like seeing the random stuff they're trying to steal. I don't think Trip would bite that guy's ear if he knew anything about Ferengi anatomy. Interrogating Porthos.
I don't know. That might be more inclined to do it then.
Yeah, it's when you're being pinned down by a tiny little Ferengi. Interrogating Porthos and T'Pol's Umox are definitely the low points. I actually like them interrogating the dog. I thought that
that was good. I like that.
You can see the sheer terror in the dog when it's like this made up Ferengi character is picking him up and stuff like that. But I did like them
so damn cute.
Trying to talk to him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. I spent about 10 minutes trying to get subtitles out of Netflix, Amazon, and CBS All Access. Seriously, it seemed like something was wrong going that long with just the Ferengi dialogue. It did seem like it was wrong, but I like them doing that.
You know, back when I was watching my way through the X-Files a couple of years ago with my girlfriend, I forget what I think we were watching it on Netflix. And we got to this one episode where Mulder and Scully are stuck on a Norwegian submarine or something.
Mm-hmm.
And the guys on the sub are just talking at length in Norwegian. I don't know if that's the right word, but whatever their native language is. And there were no subtitles. And there were no subtitles throughout the entire episode. And there were scenes that were like multi-minute scenes with just two people speaking in a language other than English with no subtitles. And I was going, wow, this is really ballsy for TV in the mid 90s. That they're doing a whole thing with just a different language. And then we got a couple episodes later was the one where Mulder ends up, he gets knocked out or something, and he ends up being nursed back to health by Native Americans. And there's this big section where they are talking in whatever the Native American language they're speaking. And again, there were no subtitles. I'm like, man, this is, oh, wait a minute. I think this is broken. And then I went and I pulled the episode up on Hulu and it had subtitles. So we watched like 2 or 3 episodes that had different languages in them with no subtitles. And I thought they were like really pushing the bar for what you could do on TV. It was just that the Netflix didn't have subtitles for some reason.
How did they unbake the subtitles out of the show? You would think that would be
idea.
Yeah.
No idea.
Because it's not really a subtitle. That would be a part of the thing, wouldn't it? Like it wouldn't depend. Interesting.
Yeah, no idea.
Yeah, there's probably, I assume the Ferengi are saying things, and it's probably a Blu-ray feature where you can see them with the subtitles on or something like that, but I don't think it's necessary. I would have gone the whole episode with not understanding a single word that the humans or whatever were saying. That would have been fine. Stefan Minton says, I confess I like nearly all the DS9 Ferengi episodes. I do penance regularly by flogging myself with my near mint condition energy whip replica. But seriously, I feel the Enterprise suffers when it shows us alien races we're familiar with from previous Star Treks without adding anything new to them. What should be a journey into the great unknown feels like a journey into the I feel like we've been here before. I don't think it's impossible to do a Ferengi episode in a prequel setting, but you have to give us a good angle, make the Ferengi feel alien again. I think Disco is a terrible disappointment, but what the Vulcan Hello did really well was make the Klingons feel strange, menacing, and utterly alien. Something like that could work for the Ferengi, but this is not the way to do it. 2 canisters of knockout gas out of 5.
What would you do if it had been a Ferengi episode and the Ferengi show up and they just have normal sized ears?
I know.
like a reverse, like a Klingon thing.
Reverse
Klingons have no.
It's just Clint Howard with no makeup on.
Just get Clint Howard and Armin Shimmerman with no makeup, and you're fine.
I wouldn't have minded. I've been thinking about the Disco Klingons too, for whatever reason recently. I don't know why, but I think that's like the one thing I like from the first season of Discovery. Remain Klingon. Let's see here. Next comment is Neil Brennan says, rule of acquisition number 69. Nice. When you've objectified your main female cast member's boobs and butt, you must objectify her ears. Side question. After I finish watching an episode, I normally read the Wikipedia memory alpha entries for it. Usually there are a few quotes from the cast and crew, and how do I say this politely? They're always a bit dumb. Not saying the actors are thick, but the quality of commentary and the insight is poor. It's all very superficial. This script seemed fun, or I had to wear those pants for 12 hours straight. Not easy. What gives? Is it just the churn of network TV, or actors who don't dive into the franchise the way we do? Or maybe they are dumb. I don't know.
I have wondered that. Not whether or not actors are dumb, because whatever, but I don't want to make those kinds of gross accusations. But I feel like a lot of times, in order to be an actor, you have to be able to just disassociate yourself from the stuff that you're actually saying. Mm-hmm. Like you are obviously in the moment and you are acting what you're being told to act, but that's like where your job ends. Especially for something like this, where you're doing so many episodes. I feel like if I was an actor, a principal actor on Enterprise, and every script had stuff I had problems with, like structure wise, they would probably fire me after 3 episodes. Yeah, you know, I think in order to just kind of keep your morale and your mind about it, you just kind of have to treat it like a job. It's not everybody who's on the show has to be a Star Trek nerd. Yep. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So, and it's funny though, listening to actors talk about stuff like this, where they're like, "Oh yeah, my pants were really tight that day." When you could talk to like an athlete 20 years after a game, and they can break down everything they did in that game. Yeah. Without having to watch the game again, where it's like, "Oh yeah, well at that point, that's when I took it down the left side." And I saw him coming on my right, so that's when I passed it across the ice to Bergeron. And it's like, what? How do you remember this shit? Yeah, one day at a time. I would be the guy who's out there being like, just got to take it one day at a time. We put out a really good effort today, and hopefully we can do it again tomorrow. That would be me as a sports guy.
Bill Belichick is the greatest actor of all these. That's the Belichick approach is just the actor approach. I think there's a few things for like Memory Alpha.
It's like in Wayne's World 2 when they talk to the roadie who lived the life. Yeah, right. And he says, that reminds me of Woodstock. And they go, "Oh my God, you were at Woodstock. What was that like?" And he says, "Well, it rained all morning, but it cleared up in the afternoon."
Yeah, I think there's a couple things going on. So the quotes on things like Memory Alpha, pay attention to the dates. So this episode came out in 2002, and the quotes are usually from like 2014 or something. It's some interview that they're doing like decades later. And it's, you know, I can, some of it is due to memory loss. And I think that the difference that you were talking about, Clay, is that I agree that actors are probably not as invested in the stuff as the people who are watching it. But I think there's also a difference between the athletes and actors, and that an athlete's game is the equivalent of being in the episode. So athletes are present for the entire thing, and they have a holistic memory of what that game was, which is the way that a viewer of an episode has a holistic memory of the episode. Actors have no connection to the finished product while they're doing it. Right. You know, they're just in their scenes, and they have no relationship to, like, they could be thinking I'm fucking killing it this episode, and then the episode comes out and we're both like 1 out of 5. Well, that was that was awful. Yeah. So they have a very disconnected relationship with what they're doing, and I don't think a lot of actors watch their shows afterwards. Yeah. So
I was just gonna say, like, if you were talking to the actress who plays Hoshi, and you were like, what are your how do you feel about the episode with the Ferengi? Do you think that was an appropriate use of the Ferengi? I'm sure she'd be like, I was there for a day and I fell asleep on the set.
She took her kids to the carnival that week. It was like she had enough free time to not have to come to set and do work and stuff. That's probably her memory of it. Yeah. But yeah, I just think for their quotes, the quotes are a combination of political answers where they're not trying to offend anybody, and lack of memory of what they actually did, and not being present for the entire thing, so they don't really know what to say about it.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting when you can tell, and this isn't a knock, because you're kind of doing what the fans want you to do, but it's interesting when you can tell the answers that they've clearly used before. Like a lot of the guys who do the convention circuit and stuff must have been asked the same questions a billion times. Yeah. There's only so many ways you can ask Brent Spiner what his favorite episode is. Yeah. And I think I think the ones who are used to that recognize there's a certain thing that the audience wants from me, and I know I have a story that can cover that, and then they just kind of nurture that story, so it's a performance piece essentially.
Yeah, the conventions in that way are just an extension of their character. It's just that they as an actor have become an extension of their character, and they have to deliver what people want to hear in that place.
Like that, I don't know. I know we're going way off topic here, but I don't know if you saw that clip of Jerry Ryan, and I'm not sure who the guy on Voyager is.
The Harry Kim actor.
Harry Kim. Yeah, and they were getting into some like really deep shit about the relationship between Jerry Ryan and Kate Mulgrew.
Yeah.
And their
That's why they start crying, isn't it? Doesn't someone say that? I think Garrett Wang starts crying, and he's just sitting next to him.
Well, no, he's crying because he was trying to get them together and bury the hatchet and stuff. And they start talking about this stuff where I'm like, man, who was expecting this kind of answer? Like, what was Jerry? I'm sure Jerry Ryan was going there hoping to assuming it's going to be like, yeah, that suit was really tight sometimes. Yeah, I remember this one time where my eyepiece fell off into my coffee, and Garrett laughed. I don't think they were
tape over my nipples so I wouldn't be chafing. It's like this is what we want.
I don't know if she was expecting to get into like a gender dynamics discussion at a Comic-Con.
Psychoanalytical breakdown of how she felt working with somebody. Yeah. It's and I as someone who looks at this stuff.
That being said. Credit to them for discussing that stuff openly.
It's much more interesting. I'm reading I'm reading the 50-Year Mission book right now, which is like an oral history that a listener, Tarek, had told me about. I'd never heard of it before, but it's an oral history. Interviews a lot of people. I'm just on early TNG, but it's so refreshing because it's not the Memory Alpha quotes about, I like this episode, it was good. It's a really nitty-gritty, like feels true to life. It's a lot of people saying the positive, saying the negative, saying like realistically, this was the most annoying thing that was going on at this point. It's not this celebration of Roddenberry, but at the same time, he has some defenders who are like, it's not that bad. He's just kind of an asshole like thing. So there's like this variety of perspectives about the whole Enterprise.
Does anybody give that diplomatic answer where they kind of pause for a second and go, anyone with a vision is going to have some hard edges. It's like, okay, so he was an asshole.
Yeah, they do talk about his vision, but in mostly a negative way about just how how no one bought into it. It was very limiting for them as writers and stuff like that. And some of it seems bitterness based out of the fact that he seems to have stolen money from some people, and Harlan Ellison is brought in and talking about it. But I just prefer that. And if I was a Star Trek actor, I would hope to be that character who went to the conventions and was like, here's all the dirt, motherfuckers. Like, I know that that's horrible for your acting career, but I just find it so much more interesting.
Look around the stage. Who's not here? LeVar's not here. LeVar, I've got stories about him.
Yep. Couldn't remember his lines. Terrible. Benjamin Espinosa says, never thought I would miss a DS9 Ferengi episode. At least DS9 had Quark, Rom, and Nog. Although it was fun seeing Combs, Ethan Phillips, Voyager's Neelix, and Clint Black. Wait, is that a...
Clint Black, the country star?
Yeah, that's what... I think I've seen them.
I didn't recognize that was him.
Clint Howard, I think is what I mean.
Yeah.
There's some humorous moments.
Rules of acquisition. Got 173.
There's some humorous moments like Porthos and T'Pol getting even with Archer, but all in all, pretty bland. How many shots did they film of people carrying things back and forth through the halls? There were so many ways Archer and Trip could have retaken the ship. Gas them back, airlock, lock them in the corridor, even detach the ship. Trip had control of the ship, after all. 2 UMOC sessions out of 5. The follow-up comment to that is Clint Black as a Ferengi would be interesting. Vault 13 Hero says, this episode finally answers the question. Sure, Ferengi episodes are pretty bad, but what if we had Clint Howard, Neelix, and Jeffrey Combs? Would that make it better? The answer is yes, but only slightly. I thought Ferengis assigned no value to gold at all unless it was press latinum, but hey, it's hard to remember everything in hundreds of episodes of various Star Trek series, I suppose. 2 massive earlobes out of 5. Kyle Barrett with the final comment. Acquisition. Is this a cheap, desperate, shameful, stretched out, no excuse for it, continuity meddling, rules of acquisition rewriting, trips package wobbling, sexist pile of women feature, cute dog mistreating, cringy umox tainting, great guest star wasting, embarrassment of an episode? Yes. Yes, it is. Do I enjoy watching it? Yes. Yes, I do. No
And
star
that
rating there.
is the summation of the human complexity.
It is. I guess it is a pile of women. I don't know if that knocks up my rating or something at this point. You should just retcon it to have...
Now you're getting dangerously close to the internet searches that Wes has been doing lately.
Remember when...
on various websites.
There's been no... just like the pile of women, there's been no... It's sometimes fascinating to look back 4 years and see how much our culture changed. Remember when Romney said, I have binders full of women's names? And people were like, what the... How dare you? How dare you have a binder full of names? Yeah. People reacted like he... This is no defense of Romney, but like, look at where we are now and look at how we reacted to him saying, I have a binder full of women's names who are potentially vice presidents or something.
Yeah, I even though that was like 4 years ago or whatever, or maybe I guess that was 8 years ago at this point. It was a different time as far as what I think most people thought was the line, I guess. And
is that even a line? It's like not even a line.
It's like that's such. I mean, I get it as a campaign era thing where it's like, oh, it sounds like he's. I don't know. I don't even remember what the reading of that was.
But like, if he had said, "I have a list of women's names," would people have reacted? Was it he's just exaggerating the size of his list? I think he's. I don't know. It was strange. People saw it as some sort of dehumanization process.
Keep in mind, it wasn't that long ago that Howard Dean disqualified himself from being president because he screamed.
Because he screamed, yeah.
So it's like depending on where the bar is at the moment. Various things can be received a lot more heavily or a lot less heavily. It's weird. It's a weird time.
I think George H.W. Bush looked at his watch during a debate, and people were like, "He's not taking this seriously."
Yeah, I mean, the Obama wore a tan suit, and they wanted to impeach him. Yeah, like what? I don't know. It's
all backfired.
Yeah, it's really I don't know what to say.
No, it's very. Just pile of women. I just don't know if anyone's taking the pile of women. That's all I could think of when it's binders of women.
The binders of women thing was weird, but remember when he was talking about how he strapped his dog to the top of his car?
Yeah, that was. Although I found that made him more relatable on some level. I was like, good for you. Just strap that dog right up there. It was in its box or whatever.
That's very much like so you're just Chevy Chase in the vacation room.
People ship their dogs it's just people ship their dogs in planes like that. I guess the thing is that if the box falls out of the plane is much harder to do than falls off the top of your car, but I think the end result is the same.
Yeah.
Honestly, Romney believes in magic underwear, which is the great disqualifier for him, but let's not focus on things that matter, I suppose. That's it. We're done with that one. What are you going to thank you patrons for your comments about that. And Clay, what are you going to give this one on our scale of 1 to 5?
Probably a high 2. Like, I don't think it's bad, but I do think it's not doing the show any favors. Mm-hmm. I think the blue, not that there was a bloom on this rose, but whatever highly manufactured sheen there was on these workmanlike episodes is really starting to fade from overuse.
Sure.
It's just, they're just kind of trucking along down the center line there is not super engaging for me anymore.
Yeah. Well, I think the high esteem we had for the average episode early was like, a Star Trek episode has never come out of the gate and given us 5 average episodes in a row. Like, what an accomplishment. And when you have 19 average episodes in a row, you go, well, I don't know how much of an accomplishment this is anymore at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a 2 for me as well. I probably would say it's a low 2. I really don't.
It's like when not that I have any direct experience, so you can tell me if it's not like this at all. But it's like when your kids learn how to put on their own clothes. Like the first handful of times, you're like, "Oh my God, that's so great, that's so great," and then after like a month or maybe 2 months, you're just like, "Yep, he got the shirt on, so I guess that's an accomplishment." Even though the shoes are in the other room and he's got mud all over his feet and tracking it all over the house, but he put the shirt on by himself. So
the downside is once he can do it, he'll go through his entire closet of clothes in one day.
Yes.
So that's the downside.
Once he learns how to put it on, it means he can just pull it off and throw it at any time.
There's a lot of pressure with the clothes thing, though, because doctors, their pediatricians use it as a development marker. So when they get to a certain age, they're like, is he dressing himself? And if he's not, you're just like, come on, put your pants on, do it correctly.
Yeah.
He can put his pants on now. The problem is he won't stop putting pants on at that point. So that's it. I think we're done. It's a low 2 out of me. I think of this one very similarly to Rogue Planet. It strikes me in a very similar way. So I'm going to stick with the same rating there for that one, which is a low 3. Clay will give it a high 3 or high 2. Sorry, mine's a low 2. That's it. Acquisition is done. Support the show at patreon.com/thepenskyfile. Otherwise, all the social media links are down below at thepenskyfile.com/links. And I think that's pretty much it.
I am a little surprised that I'm surprised that I'm not reacting as negatively to these as a lot of people are. And I'm not sure why that is. I don't know if it's just because I have no prior knowledge of, I mean, not that you do, but I feel like generally your scores have been lower than mine. And I guess I don't know. Maybe I'm not expecting as much out of the show.
Well, I have a question for you, I guess. This series, I feel like I've noticed in you a lack of remembering details occasionally. So
just now,
but I feel
you listen to the show.
I feel before it was kind of a. Like, you don't remember, like, some race nuance or something. You're like, oh, the Ferengi did that. I have no idea that the Ferengi actually did that. Here, I'm wondering if you are...
Are you talking, like, within the episodes or among the seasons?
No, within the episode. So I'm wondering if you... would you say that you're paying as strong attention to these episodes as you were later stage DS9 episodes, for instance?
100% no. 100%.
Right. So do you... I would say that I watch Enterprise with... probably 90% of the attention I had before because I don't need to pay attention all the time. Like this episode, you could watch a swath of this, and if you come back and you've missed it, you haven't missed anything really. Like you maybe had some comment here, you forgot T'Pol was in some place or something, but like you missed like, oh, T'Pol is now in that room apparently. But I feel that this episode maybe can be slipping. Maybe we're both just kind of not focused on it, which leads you to a kind of background viewing, which is not as negative as if you were actively paying attention to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What I have noticed is a lot of these episodes have started to lose me like in the second half.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm at a parent-teacher conference right now. It's like, no, he'll do better next time. He's not paying attention.
Which is not a criticism. Not to say that I feel that your commentary or something has gone down, but I do wonder if the activeness of watching it has changed it, because honestly, I have to rewind a lot of these Enterprise episodes occasionally. I find myself drifting off, and then I will like wake up and be like, oh, I missed something. I have to go back there. Or I get on an extended session of looking at my phone and I'm like, oh, I think I missed something. I have to go back.
No, I'm definitely in the same camp. The thing that's disarming me about these episodes is that when my focus does kind of shift, I don't feel like I'm missing stuff, and because it is fairly like nothing's really happening. Yeah, and so it is all kind of like flow. It just kind of washes over you. And then when I go back, I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I kind of missed that. Right. Yeah, but I don't know. I find them to be, they're not super engaging, I guess is the problem. Yeah. So I get about halfway through, and then I kind of be like, yeah, all right, I guess. I kind of assume I know how this is going to end. I mean,
to be a 1, the badness has to grab you. You know, you have to go like, wow, this is really like, this is falling apart. Like, this is awful. Yeah. And then when you're focusing on it, you're like, wow, they never recovered from this horrible start.
Which is also why I think some of the ones that have been lower, that I've rated higher and you and other people have rated lower, is that way, because those are the ones that usually have like a kernel of an interesting idea that does grab me.
Yeah.
But even those ones, they end up just kind of fizzling out about halfway through, and it's just kind of fine.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that might be the problem, but not a problem, but I think that might be the difference in scoring. But let's call it there. We're running a little bit late, so I should sign off now. But check out the patreon.com/the File. I guess that's it. Clay, do you have anything quick you want to say before we go?
Rotten Horror Picture Show. We just covered Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I don't know when this is coming out, but shortly after that, the next one is A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, and we'll have a new episode of Badass Podcast probably up this week.
Yeah, in a couple days, I would think.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, guys. Thank you very much for listening. Hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you next time.